So let's ask ourselves, looking at the scriptures that are at the top, why does God hate divorce? He says in verse 16, I hate divorce. Now, I want everyone to understand something. God doesn't say, I hate the divorcee, or the divorce, or whatever, divorcer, or whatever. He says, I hate divorce. It's like God going, I hate lying. Now, look, I hate when my kids lie. I hate lying. But you understand, I don't hate my kids. Do you understand that? I hate, using the Lord's name in vain. I hate when people use the Lord's name in vain, but I don't hate the person. I hate the sin, but not the person. So I want you to understand, God doesn't hate people. He loves people, but he hates sin because of what sin can do to people. So I see three specific reasons why God hates divorce, okay? Number one, because Jesus attended your wedding and was a witness, as a witness. So in this verse here, you'll notice in verse 14, you ask, so why does God hate divorce? It's because the Lord is acting as the witness between you and the wife of your youth. So you remember the only time that Jesus seemed to be involved in a marriage was at the miracle of the water turned into wine. Do you remember? Jesus is invited to that wedding. And so he's invited as a witness to the wedding. So I've married lots and lots of people. And so people come to church, we have this wedding. Jesus is a witness to your vows. Now, he will do one other thing. So he's a witness. And I think divorce hurts him because, in some sense, this is a danger of making vows. Is that Jesus heard you say, for better, for worse, for richer and poorer, in sickness and in health. No matter what happens, I'm a person of my word. I won't divorce you. So Jesus witnesses that. That's why it says in Ecclesiastes, be very careful making vows. Because, especially in church, at the altar, because God holds you to those, he thinks they're important when you make a vow in the name of the Lord. But the second reason why Jesus hates divorce is because God does this amazing miracle when you get married, and that is he makes you one with your spouse. And I'm going to claim to you, he makes you one not only physically, we understand that. It's the honeymoon, but he connects your souls. He intertwines your souls together. So that's the essence of kind of who you are. He puts your spirits together. So God makes you one. A special bond. It's similar to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. The Father and Son are two distinct persons, and the Holy Spirit's the third, but the Father and Son are also one. God is also one. They're intertwined. They're connected. They're individuals, but they're connected into one God. So, husband and wife, God does this miracle, and he intertwines you physically, emotionally, soul-wise, spirit-wise. He makes you one, because that's what you ask God to do. And so he does that. So when you get divorced, it's a ripping apart, and God just I don't like doing this. Ripping apart, because I put you together and entwined you, and when you rip apart, it's never a clean, perfect ripping apart, okay? So, for instance, you see that there's all kinds of studies that show people have incredible physical problems. Most people have all kinds of physical problems after divorce. Although, I'm just going to be totally honest with you, for some people who the marriage has been so bad, maybe so abusive, so horrible that actually getting divorced, they experience a relief and much better health. So I'm just being honest both ways, okay? So you can't come back at me and say, Pastor, you're not sharing the whole story. It causes damage to you spiritually and soul. And I would claim that for the rest of your lives, you always have some entangling with a person that you've divorced because God, it's very difficult to rip apart something that God has made one. Third, Jesus knows that getting divorced can affect the faith of your children. And you'll see that's in the passage, verse 15, has not the Lord made them one in flesh and spirit, they are his. And why one? Because he was seeking godly offspring. So God is looking for godly offspring, children, from a godly marriage. And there's tons of studies out there that indeed say that in most of the cases, we have learned that children of divorce, when they reach adulthood, compared to those who grow up in intact families, feel less religious on the whole and are less likely to be involved in the regular practice of their faith. In fact, it's the vast majority of kids, when they become adults and they grew up in a divorce home, will not probably walk with Jesus. Now, part of the reason for that is, and I'm going to give you the reason so you know how to counteract this somewhat. One is that kids get very disappointed because they're praying to God. They obviously want their mom and dad to be together because they're thinking about themselves, right? I realize mom and dad are having tremendous issues, but for the kids, the best thing for them would be for mom and dad to be together for them. And so they're praying to God. This is one of the first major tests of the power of prayer, but parents get divorced and it shakes their foundation. Number two is that in most divorces, the dad leaves, and often the dad gets disconnected. And many people, their faith in God the Father is connected to how their dad was. And so if dad becomes an absentee dad, then they feel God is an absentee God. So for those who do get divorced and both both father and mother are involved in the life of the children usually do better with their faith. I do want to point out once again that even though for most kids their faith will not be very good as adults, there is a subgroup of children, and it's about 10 to 20%. In fact, I believe I was in that subgroup of children that experience divorce, and they find themselves more committed to their faith than those who grew up with intact families. In the loss and suffering of divorce, they turn to God for hope and healing. And I actually think that was me. So there is 20% of kids that their parents go through divorce and they get closer to God, okay? For the church, it's very important. So studies show that if kids their parents have gone through a divorce and they're attending a church, they're involved in a church family, it's very important and very helpful that the men in the church, in a sense, act as a dad to kids that are coming from a divorce home, or like a big brother. And so studies show that if the church becomes a large extended family to kids that are going through divorce, that the kids may do well with their walk with the Lord later in life. And by the way, this is also true for the individuals who get divorced. If the church treats a divorcee like they've got leprosy, and why did you do that? And and kind of like shuns, ignores them. We don't know the whole story. Most of the time, those divorced people will leave, and their faith in the Lord will be shattered or be devastated, and they won't grow. It will end. So it's, again, very important for the church to be, we're sisters and brothers, okay? I've got 2 adopted sisters, 2 stepsisters, 1 biological brother, but we're connected. No matter what we go through, we're family. We hang in together. I got 6 kids, believe me. They do stuff that I'm like, wow, but we're family. We're connected. And that's the way we need to be as a church.